Hi, everybody. Welcome to Build Back Better, Wages and Benefits, Industry Support Webinar for the James Beard Foundation. I'm the Impact and Community Coordinator, Debbie Holloway, and I'm super excited about this panel today. Restaurant margins have always been razor thin, and their existence has too often meant that employees are left with low wages or non-existent benefits. So how do we build back better than before? I'm really excited for this panel today. We've got a couple really great perspectives, and we're going to explore equity, budgets, fair wages, health insurance, what it means to be open for good. And I have the honor of introducing two lovely panelists today. We have Judy from Bao.logy in Philadelphia, and then we have James Mark from Big King and North in Providence, Rhode Island. And because we have a little bit of a smaller panel today, I'm excited to let each panelist tell you a little bit about themselves in their own words. So James, why don't you start? Tell us a little bit about you and your restaurants and what brings you here today.
Hi, yeah, so my name's James. I own a couple of restaurants in Providence. One's called North, which has been around for about 7 years or so. The other one is called Big King, which is about 2.5 years old now. I've been in the industry for, I don't know, coming up on 2 decades, and you know, I've been working for a long time, and I'm very passionate about the professional culture, about the profession of these industries, and making them into jobs that are career jobs, and jobs that people can sustain lifestyles off of.
Awesome. And Judy, how about you?
Hey guys, my name is Judy. I'm here in Philadelphia, where it is kind of dreary, unfortunately. We own a shop called Bao.logy, under the guise of a Taiwanese, I guess the category would be fast casual. We're trying to do a new type of business model that deals with food accessibility, food sourcing, and trying to build better models for what we can do in the future. I've been very fortunate to work with a lot of great people in the past, and from all of the different experiences, have learned from them, and I continue to try to do better. I will 100% say that I am not anywhere close to where I want to be. So before anyone tells me all the things that I'm doing wrong, don't worry, I have a Taiwanese mom for that. But I'm always hoping to do better each and every day, and I hope that we can kind of all make that commitment to each other as an industry and just as fellow humans.
Awesome. Thank you, Judy. I'm so excited to have you both here today. And before we get going with our conversation, I just want to give a couple of quick pieces of housekeeping. So just so everyone knows, this webinar will be recorded, so you can watch it later, or you can send it to someone else to watch it later if they miss it. And we'll send out a link to the recording after the program wraps. You can write in a question at any time using the questions toolbar in the GoToWebinar dashboard. We'll save answering questions till the end as time allows, but please write in your questions as they come to you anytime you think of them for either Judy or James or both. And we're really excited to see what questions folks have today. And then if you are having any technical difficulties, I'm on the call, and then another colleague of mine, Kimberly, is also on the call. And so just message us using the webinar toolbar, and we'll do what we can to help you troubleshoot. Although often an easy fix is to try leaving the room and then popping back in the room, and sometimes that always helps. So let's get going with our exciting conversation. I wasn't sure what would be the best opening question, but I figured a good option would be to just take a lay of the land. Like, you can't improve a system without talking about where we're at right now. So we take stock of what is working, what's not working, what maybe is working exactly how it was designed to work, but was designed inequitably perhaps. So what do you guys think are the facets of the average restaurant that are most in need of repair or restructure, or like what's working really well and you hope we keep moving forward? Does that sound like a good opening topic?
It's not at all broad at all, and not going to change.
Pick what you like out of that. What do you think, Judy?
I think that's the whole point, right? This is a system. And we've created the system as consumers, as workers in this industry, as providers and as business owners. And I think one of the things that keeps escaping those people's responsibility or sense of responsibility is that we've all contributed to this. Like, I've worked in systems in some places or restaurants that were great. I've worked, like, I can tell you there are things that I absolutely loved about them. And then there are also issues that I didn't love about them. And I think you just kind of learn from that. Like, we're intentionally, so my husband and I are fortunate enough to be from a fine dining background, in which there are wonderful things that happen in that industry. But as we're seeing right now on a daily basis, more and more stuff is coming out about that. Was it absolutely a great learning experience for me? It was. Were there things that I wanted to change? Yes. And I am privileged that I have the opportunity amongst, and I know so many people don't have the same opportunity, to open my own shop. And because of that, I can dictate a lot of the things that I want to see from it. I mean, we basically went from the exact opposite of fine dining. Our price point is like $13 to $15, and our sourcing matches with that. We have a team that looks like Philadelphia. I will say that I think we do okay on the pay portion of things. We don't take tips here. Our team basically says, you know, while we do appreciate the tips that you are willing to give us, the best thing you can do for any business is to come back and give and support us. That is reliable revenue streams, especially for a small business like ours, is the most important thing. And to support, because the money is just coming through us as a business, and it passes through our team here, and then also to their families as well. We were talking about this before, but I know that one of the things that we're hearing a lot in the industry is that wages should go up. I absolutely 100% agree with this. This is a true profession, and we need to start treating it like it is. And I think if everyone learned through COVID, sourdough isn't that easy to do. Like, making eggs, not that easy to do. So why don't we give credit, and through credit show the money that is deserving of a true profession? And again, I'm not where I want to be at, so I don't want to act like I know everything, because I really don't. I just try to do a little bit better each day, and I'm fortunate enough to have a team that pushes us collectively to do a little bit better each day. And I'll just leave it at that for now. I would love to hear what James has to say.
Yeah, thank you, Judy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the important thing to keep in mind is that the industry, the restaurant industry, is an industry that is built on exploitation on every single level. And it's important to recognize every layer of that, because without seeing those layers, it's hard to peel them back and replace them. You know, it's built on exploitation of the earth, as in the sense, not in like hippie kind of ways, but in like, you know, literally like overfishing, bad farming practices, things that are you know, to the equipment that we use that rely on certain kinds of fueling that are, you know, extractive. You can take one step up from there to exploitation of farm labor. And the farmers that you work with might be nice people, but do you know what their business practices are? It can go to exploitation of farmers, of, you know, underpaying small farmers, or taking advantage of them in different ways. It can occur in the restaurant itself, in exploitation of restaurant labor. So whether that is front of the house with tips, or back of the house with just low wages in general, that happens a lot, and it's normal. It can, and you can do correct on all those levels, but to do correct on all those levels and to have your business be healthy, as in, like, it doesn't have to make gobs of money, just make a decent living, you need to put up some significant financial barriers to the people that can eat at your restaurant. And let's say you don't want to put those barriers up, then you end up exploiting yourself by not making any money and by doing all the work that you're doing to break even at best. And so it's important to like both look at these practices individually, but also understand that like if you're not looking at them as a whole and intersectionally, then you're never going to make significant changes within that system. So yeah, everything's broken.
Basically. I mean, one of the interesting things that people ask me a lot is, what would we have to change? I said, you'd have to change everything, which is really hard to do. And then we do this within our own industry too, right? We cannibalize our own selves, because if someone tells you, well, I'm selling this dish or something comparable for like $30, someone will do it at $29 because they just want that customer that badly that they have to squeeze somewhere. So where are they squeezing? It's either the person who works for them, the person who's providing for them, or something on the cost of the ingredient. Like, good food costs money. Like, and I constantly say to people, when food is cheap, it's cheap on the back of someone. So whose back is your food on? Is it all the people that James has brought about? And then most people will like nod their head, like, oh, I totally support that, right? And a lot of the time it's lip service. So the next thing I say to them, or is the food cheap on your back as a consumer? Like, there's a reason the US spends $11,000 per capita, and this includes children, on healthcare spending, twice of what Germany does, and then Taiwan, where my family's from, does it at 1,900. So we're paying for that in these gross costs when it comes to healthcare. So imagine what you could do if you just reshifted that money around, right? So we paid for a little bit more in the beginning, so we didn't have to pay it in the end. And what that would mean for our economy and this country and the people in it. Because the people ultimately are always our most important asset. And like sometimes we don't understand that, especially in our industry. We sit there and we're like, well, I talked through it. Like, I did the stage, I worked for free. I got paid less than $10 an hour. I got paid less than minimum wage, and it's like bragging rights. And I'm just sitting here like, I don't know why we're bragging about being treated like crap. I'm trying to edit myself so I don't say a swear word too often. But we need to rethink our own roles in this industry and to value ourselves and each other, because, why would you want to repeat the mistakes or terrible treatment that was done to you and just repeat that back into another generation?
Yeah, no, that's huge. So then, Judy, thinking about the human cost, thinking about the things that are out of our control, there are like some things that are in the hands of our lawmakers, or that are stuck in some kind of Senate tunnel somewhere. What informed, as a business owner, what informed your decisions when it came to like, all right, I'm making Bao.logy, these are the things I'm setting up, this is the way it's gonna look. What informed your decisions when it came to offering, like, what kind of equity you were able to offer, like benefits, wages, intangible, it doesn't have to be tangible stuff, but like intangibles, like what was heaviest on your mind when you were figuring out how to do this business?
So right now, let's just use COVID because everyone's dealing with it right now, and I just want to address it. So it's really stressful. Like, one of the things we do, so we're a team of 6, and that includes me and my husband. And as James was saying, you definitely exploit your own labor too, because you're trying to make sure everyone else is okay. And sometimes you forget about yourself in the process. But so everyone who's here who is salaried, which is 4 of the 6, when you're salaried, you're at 40 hours. It's not like I'm giving you a salary and then I'm going to just shove in like 30 to 40 more hours on top of that and not apply that towards it. If you do work extra hours, it's time and a half. Like, that just makes sense to me, and I think it's a much easier way to understand our team's perspective. COVID's been really stressful for everyone. They have families, we have stayed open this entire time. We never shut down, and I don't want to take for granted the fact that they still show up, and that's huge. Like, I have so many fellow restaurant owners who just complain about how people don't show up, and like, my team shows up, and I am beyond grateful for them. You know, when we started shutting down here in Philadelphia, and you know the unemployment funding was coming out, I asked everyone, I said, would you prefer to be furloughed? And you might, I don't know what the numbers work out to be, you might make more money if we put you on unemployment. So I gave everyone the option to do that, and I don't know why they're so great, but they were just like, no, we just want to keep working so we can keep the shop open. And we've been fortunate to this day not having to let anyone off. When we can, we've given hazard pay. We also have just basically waived our pay time off policy to most people. We're just saying, like, if you need a day, just let us know. Like, we just want to be able to schedule for it. And just because sometimes you just need that day. Like, I've had my meltdown days of just like curling up in a fetal position. So if I'm feeling this way, I can't imagine what it feels like to be like that. There's definitely mental health challenges for a lot of people. I'm someone who struggles from clinical depression, and I was fortunate enough to have resources when I was younger to have this care for me. So I want the same thing to happen for my team. So we make resources available to them as well. This is not an easy time. I think everyone who keeps pretending that it's going to be fine, it's going to be fine, it's going to be fine. It's not fine. Like, this is incredibly stressful for everyone. And we need to just put it out there that you don't have to be a hero. You don't have to stand there and like, oh, I'm being a frontline hero. Like, it sucks that our businesses are dealing with this. It sucks that we're not sure what's going on. We need people, and we need to be good and responsible stewards to each other and take care of each other and understand that we have needs. So we do things monetarily. Obviously, we're doing things through like Untouchables. We try to do things like that bring delight to our team. Like, we'll go, you know, call a friend who owns a local restaurant who's doing great food, and we'll say, can we pick up food for the team so they have like weekend food, and like we'll just delight them, because like I don't want to eat my food all the time, and there are great restaurateurs out here who are doing great things, and we want to highlight and showcase their work too. And it also expands the palette of our team as well, and then they start asking questions as well. So, I mean, there's so much, right? And it always feels like it's never enough.
Yeah, so for us, I mean, it was, I mean, our restaurants, or my restaurants are, you know, we have, when we were full on, like before COVID happened, we had somewhere around like 19 full-time employees plus another like 10 or so part-time employees. Pretty much all our part-time employees were front of the house staff. We're traditional like full service restaurant. And we also had attached like cocktail bar that was, you know, set in the back of our larger restaurant. And so we when we closed, or we had to close for COVID, we were allowed to stay open for takeout. I don't really remember that first week or so, but we closed for a week, and just kind of tried to take a lay of the land, because there's a complete upending of our business model, and we couldn't operate in the way that we were operating before. We laid everybody off, the entire staff, for that first week. Now, with doing that, there was a couple of things that we did. It's like, one, we had face-to-face conversations with every single person so that they understood where the restaurant was. You know, we had 66 cents in our business account at one point. And so there wasn't an option to like keep people on. Now, like, we were able to bounce back from that, and you know, we've rehired all of our full-time employees. They're still only working around 20 hours a week, but we have a system here in Rhode Island, a government system called WorkShare, where they get 20 hours a week. Then the UI system kicks in additional money to them to cover for their lost wages. So they're all, and they were getting federal stimulus money as well. So everyone's been we've been really creative about like how we pay people, to make sure it's healthy for the business and then healthy for them as well, so that like no one's taking a pay cut. Our front of the house folks, there is no front of the house, so like they don't have jobs right now, or not all of them. We have like 5 of them that do, but there's another like 10 or so, 5 to 10 that don't, and it's unfortunate, but that's also like we were a full service restaurant and we are no longer a full service restaurant. And so like there's going to be cuts in that sense of things. That work share system allowed us also to take our PPP money later on. So we just took that about 3 weeks ago. So when this federal stimulus ran out, we were able to like continue to keep people's wages at where they were with that stimulus money, or close to it, because our PPP money kicked in after that. That was a bit of a roll of the dice, but it worked out for us. And because like, to be honest, like where we are is we were doing $90,000 to $120,000 a month in sales at our larger spot, and 40 to 60,000 our smaller spot, and now we're doing like 15 to 20,000 a month in each place. And so our that's the thing about COVID is that if you were a full service restaurant, it is like natural disaster level kind of situation, because you built your restaurant around the idea that 20% of your space was for your kitchen and 80% of your space was for your dining room, with the idea that your kitchen doesn't make you money, the dining room makes you money. And now suddenly that's flipped on its head. So you have 80% of wasted space and 20% that still makes money. And so it's a difficult position to be in. We also, we were paying for people's health insurance before. When we laid everybody off, we made a shift to move everyone onto state insurance, and assisted with that process the best we could. And honestly, like I've never enjoyed, I don't like private insurance in general. I think it's kind of a scam. Our costs for that are something, to insure 15 employees was something like $7,000 or $8,000 a month. And for a small business, like that's really difficult. And our folks that are on the state insurance plans like don't notice a difference, and it's cheaper than what they're paying, or cheaper than what I was paying. And so we're able to subsidize their pay a little bit, in order to like have them be able to afford this insurance still. So like that's kind of a route I think we're just gonna go with, and it's something I always wanted to do anyways, is this idea that like, and it goes back to some other things that we talked about, like not everything can be solved from a private business level. Like that's what we've been like trying to figure out for the last like 7 years at my 2 restaurants, is like, okay, like how can I build systems to be as equitable as possible to like make these jobs into successful jobs, into full-on careers for people. And at some point it feels like there's a ceiling, and like the only way to like really like step that up to the next level is to like be putting pressure on city, state, and federal government to implement systems that will make everything work a little bit better for the working class as a whole, not just for restaurant workers. And so that, I think, and COVID, I think, shows that more than anything else, because like how many restaurants were providing, I have a friend who owns a very large restaurant group, and he has been extremely successful over the last 15 years, and he had to close all his restaurants when COVID happened, and he's still paying Cobra for his entire staff, and it's $155,000 a month, and he's going to run out of money at the end of the year. And like he's a big name guy, and it's like if like the big famous like chefs in the city or in our country like can't afford to like keep this going on a private level, like that is not a sign of you know, that's not a sign of like any individual failure. That's a sign of systemic failure, of a failure of government, because that means that like how we've done things doesn't work. Private insurance doesn't work. But that's kind of where I lean with that. You know, as far as like benefits and things like that was a big thing for me. Like when I was coming up, I worked for one person that paid for my health insurance, one restaurant group that paid for my health insurance. It made a huge impact on me. And that's something I wanted to provide. Same thing, you know, with a lot of different aspects of like benefits and vacation time and, you know, sick days and all that kind of things. Like those things were not common for me coming up. I worked for one person where like I finally had those, and then suddenly I was like, oh yeah, this is how you should be living. But what I've realized in doing it myself is that it doesn't always work for a private employer, depending on how you choose to run your business, where you choose to have your price point at. And it really should be a thing that's being handled on a public level, in my opinion.
Judy?
I 100% agree. Like, you're asking us, and you brought this up in the beginning, we have razor thin margins. So listen, I've been the person who scrubbed the toilets. I've been the person who washed the dishes. I've been the person who also was the tipped employee. Like, I've been very fortunate to be exposed to a variety of the different jobs that are in this industry, which also knows how much, like, I know how much they can suck, right? And how like little dignity, just forget about on a money basis, just in reality that we give to people. And it's funny how we're supposed like a team-oriented industry, but like we don't pay everyone like a team, you know? We don't treat people like they're all part of the team. So one of my things is, I absolutely 100% agree with James. Like, as devastating as COVID-19 is, it showed that this was built on a house of cards. This is not sustainable. So if we want to keep doing restaurants as vanity projects and lose money on it, that's fine. If you have like oodles and boodles of money to do that, good for you. I'm here just trying to make sure my team is taken care of and to get good food to people, because at the end of the day, that's what we do as a business. I'm feeling very sad these days because I hear the struggle of so many fellow hospitality professionals, and it breaks my heart because, like, what have we done as a country that we've let these people who have worked hard, right? Like, I mean, I've definitely seen comments where people are like, well, you guys aren't really a serious industry. I'm like, well, for the person who's doing this as a second job, right, just so they can go through school, for the person who does this as a second job so they can pay their bills, or for the person who really does this full time, and by full time, that's like 80, 90 hours, right? Like, how many times have we all gotten the, oh, what else do you do in your free time? I'm like, I work here 80 hours. I don't know what else you think I'm doing. I'm like trying to sleep sometimes too. We need to be treated as like, and this is not a hospitality thing only. This is a nationwide issue. Like, we're feeling it so much because we're small business owners, because we're hospitality professionals. But if we look around, we're not alone in this. And that's what's so freaking scary. Like, how have we let the basic tenet of a government and a country fail? It's so many people, right? And like, you know, people will say to me, like, you know, people like to talk politics, and they'll say, oh, you know, how do you feel about healthcare? I'm like, I think there should be universal healthcare coverage. And they'll say, oh, you're a socialist. I'm like, no, I'm a capitalist. And they'll say, well, how can you be a capitalist? I said, if you want to really talk about free market economies, then artificial barriers like holding on to a nice like healthcare package should not be something that makes you stop going to a better job. And large companies are able to utilize their power to hold this over those employees. So how are we getting the best from our people if we don't give them the true freedom that they need to be able to pursue and excel? So yes, we're feeling it the most right now because we're in a conversation about hospitality and the restaurant world. But look around, this is millions of us, and it's only going to get worse. So reach out to your legislators, like vote. You know, I know a lot of people feel like they don't have anything to say. Well, if you want to know what it's like when you don't vote, or like when your rights are taken away from you, like this is where we're at right now. Like you have the right to basic human conditions, right? You should get food. You should know that if you're sick, you can go see someone. It should not cost you like $600 to go see a doctor. And if we don't take care of our people, and by people I mean our country, or just basic fellow humans here on this planet, then what do we expect to happen next? If your most important asset has nothing as a foundation, how do you expect anything to grow? Like, are we just all going to go into robot foods? Like I heard White Castle is doing Flippy the burger robot. But then think about that. It's like, great, your money is going into AI or like a robot, and maybe it'll make you a great burger, but then you have no jobs, so those people can't make any money to pay for the burgers that you want to sell to them. Like, I don't agree with everything or most things that Henry Ford did, but he very much did believe in paying his workers an equitable wage so they could buy the product they were making. Anyways, that's my sound, sorry.
No, don't apologize. We've already got one bravo from the audience questions. So thank you for that. James, did you want to add on to that train of thought at all?
No, I mean, I think that it's, I mean, I will say I am a capitalist, a very reluctant one and a bad one. But you know, my own personal politics lean heavily to the left, and so I'm not very good at business. I'm the busiest restaurant that doesn't make any money, and
Me too.
and it's the idea that like of taking care of like the folks that work for you because you've been one of those people, you've been a worker, you know, and like, you know, I'm a big proponent of the idea that, you know, the priorities of the worker are always different from priorities of ownership, no matter how, you know, like how charitable or whatever, like however good the owner is, and that's why I'm kind of like I'm heavily like pro-union. I'm heavily like, I think that like there should be organization amongst worker labor, especially in restaurants. I think I'm on a call. But and honestly, I'm a little bit not sure with like where the industry is going right now, and not super confident about it. But that's why I'm a big advocate for government support and government shifts on the federal level as far as like minimum wage, for worker protections on city and state levels, that sort of thing. Because I think that it does have a much bigger impact across the entirety of the industry. Because like Judy can be a wonderful, wonderful owner who is extremely beneficial to her employees. I can be that. But that doesn't mean that the restaurant next to us is, or the restaurant 2 doors down. And, you know, there's this idea like, you know, around like, let's say tip minimum wage. And there's the argument to be made that, you know, when my restaurants were open full on before COVID, you know, all our servers made $20 to $30 an hour. Like they all worked 3 days a week because they didn't need to work more than that. And like, that's a great job. But they were, and that was on mostly tips. But that doesn't apply to every restaurant in my city. That doesn't apply to every restaurant in the country. And just because like a person working front of the house in my restaurant makes like really good money, doesn't mean that we shouldn't be protecting workers that make a lot less than that. And that's why like, you know, for me, I'm just going on tips now, but like, you know, we still take tips, but I am in full support of abolishment of tips as a system. But I think it needs to be taken out on at minimum city level, city or state level, personally, because I've seen, at least in full service restaurant systems, people take that plunge individually over and over and over again and see it fail every single time. And, so yes, is there a model? Are there people doing it where it works? Yes, but they are in very specific circumstances, I feel like. Or they have, I guess I'll clarify that. Are there full service like restaurant models that like where you can take no tips and they're successful in it? Yes, certainly there are. Does that work across the board? I'm less confident in that, because if it does, then why are these other restaurants that are well regarded and are busy failing at the system? And so that's kind of where I'm at with that. And it's just another example of like why, like, yes, there are things you can do on a private level. And for the record, like I'm 100% about like I'm running my restaurants the same as I've always been, and I will not turn a profit and take a pay cut myself every day of the week to make sure my folks are taken care of. But there needs to be advocacy on on higher levels, on broader levels than just in an individual restaurant. You can hold yourself up as like a clear example of what to do, but or how to treat employees or how to treat people in general. But at the same time, like I'm also holding myself up as an example of failure. I tell my staff all the time that like I don't want you, like especially my younger guys, it's like, and girls, like I don't want you to open a restaurant like this, because this is dumb. This is a dumb way to run a restaurant. Like the whole point is not for you to struggle. The whole point is for us to help build systems on a state level, on a city level, on a federal level that allow you to run a restaurant like this and succeed, or be, at least in the meantime, be smarter than I am about how you handle these things. So that's that went off on tangent a bit, but that's kind of where I'm at with a lot of this stuff.
I mean,
sorry, you're shaking your head a lot, Judy. What do you think?
I mean, he's right? Because the second, like, if doing the right thing is supposed to be like this amazing thing that gets us so much money, then James and I would be like in oodles and boodles of money, and we've been holding our little cash bags while we're talking to you all. But people have to vote with their dollars, right? Like I hear a lot of workers complaining, and I totally understand that. I hear a lot of owners complaining, and it's like there's somewhere in the middle, which not everyone seems to love me saying these days, because you're never going to get 100% of whatever you want. Like I'm 42, like I'm old enough to know that that's just never possible. But can you make progress? Absolutely. We need to have conversations, and we try to be transparent with our team here to tell them things that we're working on, things that are going on. But if I'm like, let's say me and James just have our two restaurants right next to each other, identical menus, right? Identical everything, except my food's going to be cheaper because I'm going off a tip model. Like, people are going to come to my place. And at the end of the day, consumers are making that choice to constantly go to like, oh, I know this place is crappy and I don't like the way they treat their people. Then man, I look so cool when I go on my Instagram account and post that I was here. Like, we have to do advocacy, not just to the parts of like asking the government for just basic, you say government support, James, I say it should be a foundational protection that we give so that we have development of our people, like as a country, right? Like it should be, we shouldn't, like if you didn't have to worry on Maslow's principle of security, of like food security, having shelter and just like having dignity, think of what could happen if you're not just basically trying to get that bottom pyramid taken care of. We would do amazing because we are that kind of country. But when you have what is basically an arbitrage situation set up, that restaurants are happy to basically do whatever it takes to get that dollar, and they'll squeeze their people as much as they can just to make that extra buck, to get that extra seat or whatever, you're going to see the system that we have these days, right? We have like big restaurant groups, a lot of them are exploitive, right? I don't like a lot of, I guess, former heroes and people that I looked up to in the industry are now starting to come out with certain things, and I'm just kind of like, I revered you. Like, you had everything, I thought. And now you're suddenly just like, oh, I can't take care of my people. I can't. I'm like, what were you doing with all the money? Or maybe you weren't making any money, right? And that's the illusion as well. Like, we've created this myth that these like multi-millionaire restaurateurs, like, how did they get there? You know, like sometimes it is they work really, really hard. But I don't know of anyone who has been held in the highest regards who has somehow said the things that recognize the worth of their people in this whole conversation. And I feel like there's like a Marie Antoinette kind of feeling of like, let them make cake. Like on one hand, they say, we want to help all our employees. But then like, you know, they create these like funds to fundraise. And then I hear like stories of how this money hasn't gotten to the workers at all. And then I see like another story where like they're somehow traveling to places and still. So that, I don't know. There's too much of a discrepancy, and I know this probably doesn't provide any of the answers that anyone who's on this call wants to hear, right? But that's the problem too, right? Like if we had a magic wand, don't you think we would all do it? And we can only say that we try to do better, but we're not there yet. And like, James, I'm just as bad of a business person as you are, if that helps. And I have a finance background, so go figure.
Yeah, no, it's kind of wild. I feel like usually when we try to have these conversations, it ends up devolving or evolving. I don't think it's necessarily a devolution into like all this real frustration with things that are out of our hands, like as business owners or as customers. So like, I guess I would love to end, and I think it would answer a few of the audience questions, maybe if we end it this way, by looking at a twofold question of side one, like if you know, take into account what you can't change right now, like what does give you hope, what feels like it is in your control that you want to be working on, like in your own like restaurant going forward. And then the other side of that would be of the things you can't control right now, like how can we be advocating for that like structural change? I don't know. I mean, let's just start with part one, I guess. Like what does feel like we can start working on it like now or like 2021?
I think, sorry, I'm like, wow, is it still 2020?
Truly.
So I think because we were small and we don't have like the fanciness, we always looked at ourselves more as like, we make food and we get it to our guests. We are in a center business district here in Philadelphia. All the offices are closed, so clearly no one's rushing the doors. But we were already working on other ways to reach our guests, right? And if your mission is just to do like tweezer food to a guest at a table, you're gonna have a hard time. Like that's just the reality. And that's going to be the reality for a long time. But if you can change your mindset to, which is where we are kind of at, and say, who can we serve? Who is our guest? There are so many people in need right now. So many. And many of them are our fellow professionals in hospitality and otherwise. There are many children who are in need. Like there are government programs and government funding to help create food programs to get food to children and their families. Work with them. I know it's going to be a headache. I've been trying to do this here in Philadelphia for months now, but I know other states and cities have had that success. Look to the need in your community and try to serve it. Because I think if we get into that really dark place where I feel like everyone has been or is in, we can get a little bit lost and suck ourselves into that black hole. But we're hospitality professionals. Our job is to take care of people. So let's do what we do best and start focusing on who we can take care of. Reach out to community organizations. Like you see the great work that like World Central Kitchen is doing, the Lee Initiative, right? There are other organizations like that in your community. Reach out to them. The second you start helping other people, you will realize there are a lot more opportunities out there. Like we're in Philadelphia, we're the fourth big city in America. Like there is an incredible amount of need. And I love seeing other chefs, owners, and restaurant professionals just like going there and helping and using their skill sets. We are part of this. So let us also be part of the solution. And from a employment basis, like we've been using this time to invest in our staff, right? What menu things do you want to put on there? What can we teach to you? What do you want to learn? So a lot of it's like using my one-on-one time with them to teach about inventory, to build systems, to show them things, because it shouldn't be me doing this all the time, right? I want them to grow because they've been fortunate enough to share their expertise with us. So we need to invest in them, and that's not money. So I mean, maybe I'm just the eternal optimist, but I believe that people are always the solution to get in and out of any problem. So if we're going to get into a problem, it's because of people. If we're going to get out of it, it's going to be people. And put your faith in each other. And it's going to be really frustrating, and you're going to want to hit your head against the wall a lot of the time. But people will disappoint you, but they'll also like just break your heart with how amazing they can be. And I know this sounds very smushy, so if anyone wants more specific, I'm happy to go into them, but trying to talk to a non-per state basis, since everyone's laws, and this is the problem too, everyone's laws are so different.
I think we could use at least a few eternal optimists, Judy, so I'm glad that you are one. James, what do you think about that?
I guess I'm less optimistic, but it's okay.
We need those too.
I mean, honestly, I think that like this winter is going to crush a majority of the restaurants in our industry, and the sooner we accept that, the better. Like we're able to like make plans and look towards the future. And you know what? Like I'm honestly of the opinion that like a lot of them, I'm not looking to save all restaurants. I'm not even looking to save most restaurants, because you know what? Like there's a lot of good folks out there that are like doing their best, and there's a lot of like exploitive and terrible people out there as well. And it's really hard as a consumer to tell the difference between the two. It takes some work, and we also like don't have the there's no one to hold anyone accountable. You know, it's easier now with like social media than it had been for a long time, but it's still like nowhere near, you know, where it ought to be. And so like what I'm trying to focus on in these next few years is, you know, one, doing whatever good we can in our own city for our most vulnerable. So like we've been real like big supporters of groups that fight hunger in our city for a long time. You know, we made monthly financial contributions to organizations that did that work. When COVID happened, we stopped doing it, and what we've realized in working with a few other activist groups more recently is that while those organizations are certainly worth supporting, there's still like work to be done on a ground level that often gets looked over. We like now part of like what we do is we cook meals weekly for folks that are hungry in our city, that we provide at no cost. And you know, that's just where we're kind of like focusing a little bit more on now, ground level stuff. And as an industry, like what we're trying to do, like what we're like trying to work on is prepare the next generation of our staff to not be employees in our business anymore, to be their own, to be the chef of their own restaurant, to even a lot of them don't want to be chefs and want to like work in other aspects of the industry. And it's like, okay, well, what do you want? What do you need? Like, and listening to what some of their needs are a little more intensely than we were before, and not just like thinking about it on the level of like, all right, how can we keep North being as good as it can be, or you know, taking it to the next level. Like we're happy with like I'm very happy with like what the work that we've done over the past 7 years. I don't need any more accolades. I don't need any more like whatever. I don't need to win anything anymore. Like if we can have our staff move on in the next 5 years into positions that create success for themselves, that's what I'm looking to have happen now. And I'm still proud of, like, we're still working hard every day at North. We're still working hard every day at Big King, but COVID has shown us anything. It's that like the work that you do can become null really quickly. Doesn't matter how like we look at Big King, it's like we can't do the same kind of sake service that we were doing before, the same kind of food, like table service we were doing before, because we don't have anyone inside, and so, or outside for that matter. We just do takeaway, and so it's like, all right, well, some of that stuff feels a lot less important than like helping the folks that we do have achieve what they want to achieve. And so, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. It's just really just getting more down to the ground and like understanding like the direct needs of both the people that live in your city and the people that work for you.
I will say, like, getting down onto the ground, like a lot of it has been talked about, like compensation, right? Because we all want to feel valued. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it is. And it's so scary right now because we don't know when we will, especially with federal aid ending. Ask questions. Ask a lot of questions. Like, I'm happy to explain to my team where we're at, what we're doing, things like that. And I'm honest with them. Like, if we have, like, we find any extra money in a week, we do hazard pay. And sometimes it's not like I can give you money, but like I can give you those days off that you need to do whatever you need. Like, compensation can come in different ways, and everyone has different needs, and we want to make sure we recognize those individual needs and address them. But ask questions. Like, I've seen, a lot of like, we should be making more per hour. I can't speak for everyone because I know a lot of restaurant owners aren't like this, but many restaurant owners that I love have been raising that minimum wage for tipped wages, and they're raising it from whatever the minimum is. And they're not able to do like $20 minimum per hour and then tips on top of it, but they'll do like $2, $3 because they don't, it's not like they don't want to give you money in those particular, with the case of better owners, it's that they don't have it. And if they don't have it, how do you expect them to give it to you? And conversely, owners should be absolutely reaching out to their teams and saying, what do you need from me? And being honest about what you can actually provide. Like, yeah, it's uncomfortable. These are really uncomfortable times. I think we need to learn to be uncomfortable and have more uncomfortable discussions and understand that that's just the lay of the land. We're not going to fix it by all pretending that everything's fine and just asking for whatever we think we want. It needs to be more of a partnership and a team effort. So one of the things I've talked to you about my team is, if we were able to be fortunate enough to survive this, I want to convert this into like employee ownership. Like, I think, the capitalist in me says, like, I created the concept, so I should get some reward for it. But these are the people who make it work. So why shouldn't they be valued as well? And I would love nothing more than for them to either start their own businesses or should take ownership in this one so they can benefit from their direct hard work. And that's its own way of looking at things as well. I'm sure people will tell me I'm naive and a romantic, which is fine with me. But ask questions, have uncomfortable discussions, have painful discussions. If you're crying, that's it. Like, it means you got somewhere. But that's it. Like, this is where we're at. Like, it's broke.
Yeah, I think like financial transparency is super, super important. And like, it's time to like be radical with that kind of thing. It doesn't necessarily need to be like, oh, like we have X number of dollars in the bank right now. It can be framed in the way that like, hey, like this is like how much we're making right now, and like this is how long we can last at this rate. Like, this is why like we're setting wages at this point. And it's okay to also be like, yeah, no, there's no money left. It's like, and like I'm also, that's easy for me to say, and like, because like, all my guys know that like they make more money than I do, and have always. And so they all know that like I'm always the one to like cut myself first, and that like I'm doing my best by them. But like it's still important for us, like for as a team, to like being open about that kind of stuff, because like if you can be open and vulnerable about that sort of thing, like maybe they're like, yeah, okay, like that's fine, but I can't afford to work here anymore. And that's fine also. It's like then they can't afford to, like, if they can't afford to work here anymore because you're not able to match their pay, the pay that they need, then neither party should be involved with each other at that point. And that's just like the reality. It's the danger about what happens in this business a lot, of like referring like employees as like family and that sort of thing, where like you do anything for them. And yes, like I care very deeply for all of my staff and would do most things for them, but at the same time, like that doesn't, it leads to exploitation, or it leads to situations where like one person feels exploited, and sometimes like ownership doesn't even realize it's happening, or doesn't see it from that same perspective, because like the conversation isn't happening. And so like that's where being transparent and like having painful conversations, or having conversations at all, with your staff that are open and honest, are really important.
Oh man, you guys are awesome. This has been a great conversation. We're right at 3, but if either of you wanted to like end with a final word, you could certainly say that now before we say goodbye to everyone. Judy, did you have anything else you wanted to say?
I'm going to say, like, I'm sure that half of these people, or if not more than half of the people listening to this, are going to be completely frustrated by what we said. And that's okay. Like, be mad, be okay. Like, if you have any questions about more specific things, like, you can, like, our Instagram handles are on there. You can come find us. Like, I'm always happy to have a conversation about this. Like, I'm always happy to help anyone who wants to do better, right? So like, you don't have to learn it all on your own. You don't have to start from scratch. Like, can we just agree that, like, why would we keep doing that over and over again? And I'm sorry that this doesn't answer and provide anything concrete to most people, because all of our businesses are different. All of our teams are different. If you want to have a direct conversation about this, I'm happy to like spend whatever time you want to talk about, like, I saw a question about like tips and everything like that. Like, I don't know the rules of your state, but I can walk, if you have a one-on-one conversation with me, I can like flesh it out a little bit more, so you can educate me, so I can better advise you on what I've seen in my experience in fine dining, as well as now fast casual, as well as BYOB and whatnot. So I'm sorry to everyone who we didn't provide like the magic answer to, but there is no magic answer. Like, systems are created by our choices. We've created this. Now we have to all individually do the work to uncreate and rethink and remake it. And yeah, I mean, James said it, like, not every restaurant should survive. We're businesses. We're not like as much as I'd like to think I'm doing a better business model, like, we don't get to survive just because we want to survive, right? Like, if only wishing made it so. We're not. Like, if we survive, it'll be because of our team. If we don't survive, it won't be because our team failed. It'll just be we didn't have enough support from the community. So at the end of the day, use your voice and use your dollars and use your power that you have to amplify, lift, support, even if it's $1 here or $1 there, to get to see the change that you want to happen. Because I'm not seeing it enough. I'm just seeing a lot of people saying, like, I want things to be fixed. I'm like, I would love that for it to happen too, but you and I don't agree necessarily on what fixed means. And even if we do you know how long it takes to do that? And so people have to be in it for the long haul. Like all those layers of the onion that James was talking about, like, this is not like they happen overnight. This is hundreds of years of this. So we need to give ourselves and everyone else a little bit more time to dig out of it than like a snap. This isn't Avengers. Thanos doesn't have the infinity gauntlet, and it's not going to happen at once. If I could, I would absolutely do it, guys. But we're going to have a lot of this, and we're going to have to keep talking about it. And, hopefully in a month, we'll see a little bit of progress. And then make sure you vote, everyone. Please vote. Write to your legislators, write to your local council people, write to your mayors. Like it's not just about one race, it's about the entire system. And politics is a system, and food is a system, racism is a system. We got here because a series of choices were made by a lot of people. So be one of those people who makes new choices.
Thank you, Judy. James, do you have any final remarks?
No, I mean, not too much. I mean, I think that Judy was really well spoken with that. The one thing I want to say is that, like, for all the struggles that, like, we as, like, current restaurant owners are going through right now, like, you know, while we are both people of color and Judy is a woman of color, like, at the end of the day, like, the gates in front of us are, like, nowhere near the gates that are in front of brown and black people. And, you know, so, like, there's a whole nother layer of, or a whole nother conversation of, like, social justice that needs to happen and is happening right now. And it's just important that people engage with that and take the time to, like, self-reflect with those sorts of things. We are both restaurant owners, and we are restaurant owners because we worked hard, and we are restaurant owners because we got lucky, but we are also restaurant owners because, you know, we didn't have to jump through as many hoops as
We privilege
to the person that's next to us. And so those are, you know, there's no war but class war, but you know, there are, like, other aspects. This is a very long and deep conversation that needs to continue to happen. I'm glad that it's happening in our cities and in our country, and I just hope that people stay engaged and keep examining themselves, as well as, you know, the systems that we have put in place and benefited from.
Thank you for that super important reminder, James. Thank you both so much for taking time out of your day. I mean, Judy, I know, like, you're right there. And, like, James, your daughter, it was so nice to see her for, like, a second.
She's so cute.
Thank you. Thanks to your families and your staff for sharing you with us for an hour today. And thank you to everyone who joined from home watching. We got a lot of questions we didn't have time to answer, or we didn't really have the scope to answer. But I'll share them with both the panelists afterwards, just so they can see everybody's questions. And you can always email the James Beard Foundation, sign up for our industry newsletters if you want to get more information in your inboxes about panels like this, because we're doing them every single week, and they're awesome. So thank you everyone so much for coming, and have a good and safe rest of your day, okay?
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. Take care.
Bye.